Well, she did it again. Ronda Rousey did it again. This time, she beats Kat Zingano in 14 seconds. Her last 3 fights, they've lasted a combined minute and 36 seconds. One of the most unbelievable storylines in MMA right now. Ronda Rousey continues to annihilate her opponents, and tonight at UFC 184 here in Los Angeles, it was no different. Hello again, everyone. I'm Ariel Helwani. Following the post-fight press conference here at the Staples Center, I'm being joined by Marc and Dave Meltzer. And guys, another virtuoso performance for Ronda Rousey. Let's start with you. And of course, this all started because Kat Zingano came out there, bum rushed her, and of course, that led to the quick submission. Do you think that was one of the biggest mistakes in MMA history to start a Ronda Rousey fight like that?
It was definitely a big mistake, and you can almost understand why someone would want to do that, because you have Ronda Rousey who has dominated almost in every phase of the game at this point. So when someone dominates like that, what do you try to do? Well, something weird, so just something crazy, something that she isn't expecting. Because if Ronda Rousey is in her base and she's set and she's ready to go, she's capable of beating everyone mostly. But if you can make her, I don't know, do something weird, do something crazy, make her get on her heels and try to capitalize. I understand the thought behind it. I don't think it was the right choice, and obviously, hindsight is 20/20, and she lost in, 14 seconds. But yeah, it was a big mistake. You'd rather see Kat Zingano do what she does well. Everyone talked about how well-rounded she was. She has great Muay Thai. She's a really good jiu-jitsu purple belt. She started in wrestling. She's very good at all these things, and she didn't give herself a chance to use any of them. She came out with that crazy flying knee, and Ronda Rousey, you make one mistake, and that's it. It's a wrap, and that's what happens.
And that's why you can't help but feel so bad for Kat. She's been through so much. For it to end that quickly is just heartbreaking stuff. But put us in that moment and be honest, Dave. When you saw Kat run after her like that, bum rush her, in that moment, before it went to the ground, did you think, this is actually a good idea?
No, not really. I can't say that. Because it unfolded so quickly that I wasn't even thinking, and then all of a sudden it was like, how'd you get that armbar? I mean, and see, now the one thing that I took out of this fight, she's beaten a lot of people with armbars. I think it's about eight or nine so far. But this was the most magnificent armbar I think that I've seen. It was like when we talk about technique. I mean, even the best men's black belts and stuff, just that armbar out of nowhere. Because it wasn't like it was set up. It was just like, there it was, and now it's over.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable to watch every single time. How can she outdo herself? I've said this all week, and we even talked about it. Do you feel like if you're a fan and you bought that pay-per-view, you were cheated? Or once again, Mike Tyson effect, you saw what Ronda Rousey does best, and that's finish her opponent with an armbar and super fast. What do you think the MMA fan is thinking after paying $55 for that?
I think there's probably two segments of fans. I think there's a fan who is probably more within the MMA bubble that may be getting tired because it seems like the options for Ronda Rousey, the opponents, are dwindling. But I think that the casual fan, there is that amazing appeal to see another person defeat another person that quickly, because it's not an easy thing to do. These are world-class athletes. These are the best fighters in the division that she's taking on pretty much every time out, and she defeats them, like that. You can fit her on Instagram. It's so quickly. It's a 15-second clip, and that's it. It's over. So I think that there's a certain like Mike Tyson aspect of it where you want to see her. What can she do next? What is? Wow, is she gonna knock her out? Is she going to submit her in 10 seconds? What can she do next? But there's some MMA fans who are like, well, can we get this girl a challenge? Can we get this woman someone who can actually challenge her? So there's probably two segments. I think the larger segment though is the people who are saying, well, I want to see what Ronda Rousey can do. I want to see if she can win in 5 seconds.
Is this good for business in your opinion, Dave? Because you had 17,000 fans, close to $3 million gate. Clearly she is a star. If she keeps doing these quick fights, do you think that's good for business?
It's a weird one because, I mean, my answer is basically yes, though. Yeah. But I mean, it's different for different people. But I think that what people want to do, I mean, like when she won and everybody was leaving, they were, wow, did you see that? It wasn't like, boo, 17-second fight. It wasn't like that at all. And I think that people watching on TV and everything, you want to pay to see history. And I think people are looking at this going like, we are seeing a part of history. Every match that this woman fights, is going to be 10 years from now. We're going to go, remember the 14-second fight with Kat Zingano? They're going to say that, like, and people are going to go, how'd she ever beat her in 14 seconds? And people are going to look up the clip on YouTube. I mean, this was it's going to be a historical night, not like just a normal rank of the normal monthly pay-per-view.
And of course, it was historic just because main, co-main, all females, right? I mean, what do you think? I know it's early. Dana said trending well. What do you think this does on pay-per-view? You're the king of that.
I wasn't that excited about a big number here because I just thought that, again, the depth of the card wasn't really there. But Ronda's a big star. And, here's the thing. Everything this year's been good. It's like who would have thought that last week's fight would have been the 5th biggest on Spike? I just thought, on FS1. I thought that this was just a run-of-the-mill going against the Oscars. I thought actually I was going to get killed by the Oscars. And it did really well. So they're on a roll. Everything seems to be good right now. And when you're on a roll, you kind of, the momentum kind of keeps going. I think it's going to be in the 3s. Okay. If it beats the 4s, then that's pretty damn great, considering everything. But the one thing is, even in the 3s, you got to say something. 5 years ago, if you had said that there was a show that's going to be headlined by 2 women's fights, people would go nuts. Maybe one. Yeah. Maybe one, the right mix, maybe one and once a year. But this is like someone who could headline 3 times a year. And then with this women's fight as a semifinal, even though it wasn't planned like that, I don't think it was a negative. Like I said, the building was full, and people leaving didn't leave with the idea. I mean, I didn't feel when people left that they were unhappy at all.
You were at Invicta last night, Marc. You saw Chris Cyborg. You saw what she did to Charmaine Tweet. Dana White kind of coy about her relationship with Zuffa and what's next, saying it's all about the weight and all that. Would it be, to steal a phrase from our friend Luke Thomas, promotional malpractice to not make this fight next?
To not make it next, it's probably not going to happen next. Yeah. It's most likely not going to happen next. It has to happen, though. It just has to happen at this point. She's the only person that people think can challenge Ronda Rousey. I know Betche Kohea was here tonight and Jessica Ai were here tonight, and they're both really trying to get the next title shot against Ronda Rousey. I don't think that many people believe that they're really, in her class. I'd watch both those fights and I'd be interested, but Cyborg is a different animal. She hasn't lost since 2005. Granted, she's fighting at a higher weight class, and that's what they keep saying. It's the weight. There's always some. I don't want to use the word excuse, but it comes from a place of just really wanting to see that fight. And like Ronda Rousey and Dana White they're very defensive about this topic. Yeah. They're very defensive about all the questions they get. But it's not coming from a bad place. It's coming from a place of, hey, we want to see the best possible fight. And what has Dana White always said? He wants to deliver the fans the best possible fight. If that isn't the best possible fight in women's MMA right now, then I don't know what it is. I mean, we're doing something's wrong, because that is the fight right now.
Not even right now, ever. That's the big fight. I mean, that's
one of the best in MMA, period.
Yeah, I mean, that's our Pacquiao Mayweather. I mean, it's not going to be at that level, but it's the dream fight between the 2 top people of the era. And I mean, I could see the weight issue. Cyborg can lose the weight. I mean, it's not going to be easy because she's a big woman. But I mean, if you have $1 million riding on the fact, all of us, we got to drop about 20 pounds. We're going to find a way to do it. And we're going to be miserable doing it, but we're going to find a way to do it. And Cyborg has nothing on her plate without this fight. She's got nobody at 145 that anyone cares about. So it's like, for her career, she could make, a little bit of money doing these Invicta fights, or she could make, be in the biggest fight ever. And if she wins, she'll accomplish every dream she's ever had. But if she doesn't do the fight, she can't accomplish that dream. Yeah,
and she's working with George Lockhart now, who's a very well-respected nutritionist. One has to think she's thinking about that. She doesn't need that for a 145-pound cut, so we'll see. Let's put her on the sidelines, though. To me, the no-brainer is Betche Kohea. She's got that whole thing with the 4 horsewomen. Not Jessica Ai, with all due respect. You have to do the undefeated Brazilian, right, next?
More than Jessica Ai. I think there's more interest in that fight. I think it'd be really cool to do that fight. I think that you may even brought it up in Brazil, just because she's never fought in Brazil. Yeah. And it's, again, because she's such a big star, I don't know that they want to take her to Brazil when they could take her to Las Vegas or here and draw really big. But I think the idea of her fighting internationally, there's something about that I think is really cool.
Yeah. Let's talk about Holly Holm, because a lot of people wanted to push her there, but it seems like they pumped the brakes a little bit. What did you make of her performance?
It was fine. It wasn't an amazing knockout. It wasn't anything that people are going to really get riled up about. It's not a fight that is going to send her into a title fight with Ronda Rousey, but that's okay. Maybe that's best. Maybe that's what really she needed, because her coach Mike Wicklejohn was on your show on Monday, and he was even saying she's not quite there yet to take on Ronda Rousey. She's going to need another 1 or 2 fights before she gets there. So maybe not knocking out Pennington in the first round in this fight was good for her, because now it allows her that breathing room. No one's going to be on her back like, we want you to fight Ronda Rousey next fight. You're the next contender. This is actually a good thing for her. Maybe she can get her feet wet in the division. She can beat a couple, potentially beat another couple of contenders, and then that fight becomes even bigger. And I think it's probably a good thing. I'm not completely surprised by that, because she had the 2 injuries. This is her toughest opponent by far. Even though Pennington, was, I think, around 500 her record, this was by far her best opponent. She hasn't fought anyone near as good as Raquel Pennington. And Pennington's tough. Tough. She wasn't gonna get finished. I said it on your previous show. She'd win a fairly dominant, unanimous decision, but she wasn't get finished, and that's pretty much what happened.
Dave, we had a lot of great performances tonight. Jucao Carnero coming back, great win for him. Alan Jouban, another great win. There were some nice performances, but I actually kind of want to end on a bit of a sour note. Marc Munoz, tough loss, and Josh Koscheck, who loses Jake Ellenberger. Jake Ellenberger comes back. He needed that win very much. Do you think this might be the last time we see both Munoz and Koscheck inside the octagon?
I mean, based on the performance, it's got to
what they've done as of late.
Right. It's got to be a consideration, and especially because with Koscheck, I mean, he didn't fight like he fought before. I mean, Munoz was beaten in seconds. So and I was stunned. Not that he lost, although I would have expected him to win this fight, but just how easy it happened. I mean, it really was stunning. But Koscheck, I mean, he was just backpedaling. I mean, it felt like a guy he knew already. That's just because he wasn't himself. I'm watching it going like, this is not the Josh Koscheck I've been watching for 10 years.
Before we let you go, gotta ask this guy about Brock Lesnar, right? Of course. This is the man to ask. A, did you expect him to be here?
Absolutely not.
Okay, and B, just for those that don't know, who don't read The Observer, and they can get it at WrestlingObserver.com, right? Set the scene for us. Where's Brock at right now? Because, as you reported, there was something that happened on Monday between him and WWE. They don't appear to be on the best of terms, right?
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure of what the problem was, but I know that on Monday, Vince McMahon and Brock Lesnar were talking contract. His contract is up at the end of March, which Dana's brought up and everything, with WrestleMania. And I don't know what they were talking about, but there was yelling and screaming involved. It was pretty loud. It was a heated discussion. Brock did not appear on the television show Monday night, which he was booked on. And whenever Brock is booked, it's a big deal. And they were advertising it as right before the show starts. There's all these ads out, like see Brock Lesnar tonight. Brock Lesnar's here, and then he flew home in the middle of the show. I was told that the issue isn't gigantic, but it's Vince and it's Brock, and it's two guys that are not giving in easy. So he came here.
Brilliant, right? What a brilliant businessman. What do you think? Look into that Dave Meltzer crystal ball. Does he sign with the UFC when this contract is up?
See, logic tells me that he's got more longevity as a pro wrestler. Yeah. But I actually talked to some people with WWE this morning, and they were very confident last week that he was going to stay, and they're not now.
And they didn't think he's going to be here, right? Was a surprise?
Yeah, and nobody expected him to be here. But it was certainly a message sent to Vince McMahon. I mean, that's why because how many times Brock doesn't do anything without it unless there's a reason. I don't always understand what it is, but he doesn't leave the house and come to Los Angeles, unless there's a reason. He wanted everyone to know that he's here and to tell Vince McMahon that I don't need you like everybody else needs you, and if you want me, it's going to be on my terms.
Wow. Unbelievable. Last thing, we started the week with you. We talked about this being a historic weekend for women's MMA. You were there once again at Invicta. Dana White is enamored with Alexa Grasso. Mentioned her on the prelims. Mentioned her at the post-fight press conference. This was what we expected, right? A great show on Friday. Here, once again, a great show. A pretty good weekend for women's MMA, right?
Absolutely. I think that when we look back, we'll probably point to this weekend as one of the big weekends for the sport, especially if that Rousey Cyborg fight does get made, because it really was set up this way. It's not a coincidence that Invicta did their show on Friday in Los Angeles. I mean, anyone thinks it's a coincidence. I mean, I have a bridge in Brooklyn that I could sell you. It was done by design. Even if they don't want to talk about it, there's something going on behind the scenes. That fight is definitely on the radar. Shannon Knapp told you the other night that the fight is closer than it's ever been. And I think when that fight happens, it'll be historic, and we can point back to this weekend as kind of what really started the ball rolling on it.
And worth noting, since it has been such a big topic as of late, for the first time in California MMA history, they urine and blood tested every single fighter on this card. So Andy Foster, the executive officer of the California State Athletic Commission, paying out of his own pocket, not going to the UFC, really trying to send a message to everyone that here in California, PEDs will not be tolerated. We'll see what happens there. Hopefully, no more positive tests. For now, we say goodbye. Thank you so much for watching our coverage all week long from here in Los Angeles. A great week for women's MMA. Ronda Rousey once again proving that she is one of the very best of all time. For Dave and Mark, I'm Ariel. We'll see you on Monday for the MMA Hour. We have a great show planned, but you'll have to wait to find out who will be joining us. For now, we say goodnight from Los Angeles.